Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland. I'm continuing my series for History GCSE about international relations from 1919 to 39. This video is going to focus on the Franco-Belgian occupation of the Ruhr. The Treaty of Versailles stated that Germany had to pay for much of the damage it had inflicted during the First World War. In 1921, the Allied Reparations Commission reported, and they calculated that Germany should pay £6.6 billion sterling, and Germany began to pay pretty soon. The Germans protested about this, saying it was grossly unfair, that the sum was exorbitant and the rest of it, but the Allies were having none of it. Anyway, it came to early 1923, and the German government decided it just couldn't pay. The German economy was in a parlous condition. Germans were often just lifting out of malnutrition. Germany had lost a lot of markets after the First World War and not regained them. So many young men had been killed, other young men had been invalided out, and all the rest of it. A lot of people who were highly educated, skilled, had left the country. So Germany stopped paying. It was supposed to be paid back in 42 annual installments. The United Kingdom was somewhat sympathetic. The French were absolutely not. The French considered Versailles had been far too soft. So by God, they were going to get every last centime out of the Germans. Anyway, 1923, Germany fell behind on reparations payments. And the French and Belgians said, right, if you're not going to pay us what you owe us, we are going to simply remove goods to the value of the reparations. So French and Belgian troops entered the Ruhr. The Ruhrgebiet, this district, is in the extreme west of Germany, close to the Belgian frontier. It's a very very coal-rich area, this conurbation, and there are many factories there. So the French and Belgians were going to seize coal, manufactured goods, timber, to compensate themselves for the reparations that the Germans were refusing to pay. So the German government ordered workers in this district to go on strike. Germany did not take military action. Remember, as a result of the armistice and then the Treaty of Versailles, Germany had no tanks, not much artillery, very few warships, no submarines, no poison gas, not a single plane, no air force. Only 100,000 men. So there's absolutely no way that Germany had the military might to stand up to the French and Belgians. Moreover, there was a high rate of political violence in Germany. So Germany had often been teetering on the brink of civil war. Anyway, the German government then began to pay these strikers not to work. The Germans printed more money in order to do this, which obviously reduced the value of their currency, the mark, and hyperinflation ensued. Anyway, as the Germans downed tools, the governments of Belgium and France said, right, that's it, all right, we'll bring in our own labourers to collect these goods, and by the way, we'll add their salaries to the reparations bill. So they were not going to be frustrated by German non-cooperation. And so French and German labourers were digging coal, cutting down trees, working in factories, and all the rest of it. These countries had high rates of unemployment after the First World War because of the terrible economic dislocation. Governments had spent so much, it was very difficult to manage just paying off the interest on their deficit. Anyway, so the French were determined to rule with an iron hand, the Belgians likewise. Remember, almost all of Belgium had been under German occupation during the First World War, and thousands of Belgian civilians had been deliberately killed by the German army during the First World War. I'm not talking about collateral damage, rounded up and shot on purpose with orders from the High Command. Not being anti-German, I don't want anyone to be mistreated for being German, just stating the plain truth. So many Belgians utterly detested their German neighbours and were very happy to be very hard on the Germans. Anyway, the French announced that sabotage would be punished by death because some Germans began sabotaging French trains that were due to remove coal and other items from the Ruhr. A German chap who was caught vandalising a train, Leo Schlagter, was executed by firing squad. Adolf Hitler later praised this man on the first page of his book, Mein Kampf. So German credibility was very low. around the world. The German government had completely lost the respect of its people, and many felt that not using force against the occupation of the Ruhr was a national disgrace. Remember, this was a country which was known for its military prowess just a few years before, had been heavily outnumbered by the First World War, and come quite close to winning the First World War with a few purple patches. Anyway, it was in November 1923. Adolf Hitler led his Nazis in an attempted coup d'etat in Munich, a city in southern Germany. I don't wish to be distracted by that. That's not the thrust of this video. That's the Beer Hall Putsch. Anyway, it turned out to be farcical and collapsed after only 36 hours. But it demonstrates just how low the German government stock had fallen with its own people that such a coup was attempted. November 1923, a new chancellor, that's equivalent of prime minister, came to office in Germany. His name was Gustav Stresemann, leader of the DNVP. That's the political party. He called off this campaign of passive resistance in the Ruhr, and he began to negotiate with the Allies. He found that the Americans were much more approachable. A New York banker named Charles Dawes was tasked with the League of Nations of finding a solution. Mr. Dawes said he cared about economics and not politics. He was simply trying to find a workable solution whereby the French, British, and other Western countries could receive their reparations payments, and the German economy would not be utterly wrecked. So he drew up the Dawes plan, and that was the United States would lend lots of money to Germany for investment, building up its infrastructure, buying machinery from abroad, and so on. The Germans were specifically prohibited from using this money to repay the Western Allies. But anyway, the German economy would pick up. Germany would then be able to pay the reparations to these Western countries, which were hugely indebted to the United States, and they would pay money to the United States, and it would stimulate the whole global economy. The German reparations were rescheduled over a longer period of time. Once the Germans recommenced reparations, the French and Belgians would withdraw their troops from the Ruhr. So what can we conclude from all that? The Paris peace treaties have been threatened or even broken down by force in some cases. By the mid-1920s, though, the international scene was one of placidity. There was only so much war that the world could stomach. Almost everyone was thoroughly fed up with war, and most people wanted a quiet life. War did not seem glorious at all. Most people found jingoism to be distasteful, and they felt that excessive national pride and hubris had been responsible for all the misery and the untold bloodshed of the First World War. Governments also felt they couldn't afford large militaries. They were often dealing with mass unemployment, general strikes, the threat of communist revolution at home. Although oddly, in the years running up to 1914, some people had felt that there should be a war to unite us all, that military conflict was the best way out of political controversy, and that people would sink their differences, then there'd be no more strikes, and there'd be no socialist revolution, and things like that.